The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is directed by Guy Ritchie and stars Henry Cavill, Henry Golding, Alan Richardson, Isaac Gonzalez, and among others. And this story, it tells a alternative, a fictionalized tale of the events that took place in World War II called Operation Postmaster, in which the British Special Forces had initiated an espionage black ops operation that involved with this team pretty much going under enemy lines of German warfare in order to sabotage the supplies for the German U-boats. And along the way, they encounter some. On one hand, in the movie, you have the team that's on the ground. That's basically Henry Cavill's team, and then you have Isaac Gonzalez that's doing the undercover work while trying to infiltrate the Germans. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Guy Ritchie, which I don't really have much to go on after really talking about from my other videos, because I've talked in detail about some of his other films, so nothing to really go on like I've said before. But I have enjoyed his work a lot. I've seen a handful of his movies, but I still need to check out a lot of his earlier works. I love Snatch. I love The Gentleman. I really enjoyed last year when he brought out The Covenant. And also, I didn't mind Operation Fortune, even though it had some issues here and there. He can be hit or miss sometimes, depending on what kind of movie he's doing. But for the most part, when he works in his kind of style that he usually uses for his crime movies, like with Snatch and his other films, it really showcases a lot of him as a director. And with going into trailers for this, it really got me curious because it looked like it was going to be like a mix between Inglourious Bastards mixed in with like Mission Impossible, and it actually really plays it out the way I expected after finally upon seeing the film. And so after upon seeing it, I can say that I had quite a lot of I had a blast with this movie. It has some little minor issues that kind of hold it back from being great, but I still had a really good time with this. And to get my pros out of the way, I thought the cast in this were all fantastic. Henry Cavill, what can I say? I've always enjoyed the guy as an actor, and here, him playing the lead of all these ragtag special ops forces that are going and fighting the Germans and stuff. I just thought it was the Nazis and stuff. It really captures. He really just makes it so much more. I like seeing him in action roles like this, and it almost got. It does also make me want to check out that other film he did that was directed by Guy Ritchie called the Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I heard which was actually which I actually heard was pretty good too. And so one of these days I may check that one out, but I always enjoy the guy, seeing him with other stuff, whether it's Superman, whether it's, like he had earlier this year of Argyle. He just has a really great screen presence. And the rest of the cast really shine their own regard too, especially Alan Richardson, who I've seen in some things, like mainly from movies like Fast X, and I've heard he's really good in Reacher, which I need to check out because I hear that's a really great show. And he really captured it from what I hear from the books. Even though I don't mind the Tom Cruise films, I do still want to check out Reacher eventually. But I hear he's great, and then, the rest of the cast, you got also Carrie Elway's in there, you got Isaac Gonzalez, who I really enjoy as an actress, Til Schweiger, who I haven't seen in a movie in quite a long time. It's great seeing him play in a movie like this, and funny enough, this kind of makes a good double feature with this as like a alternate version of Inglourious Bastards, where instead of him pretty much in that movie, Inglourious Bastards, him fighting the Nazis, imagine if you take Hugo Stieglitz and turn him into basically like the leader of his own German army. That's what you get with this one. And so he was great, and he definitely has some really great chemistry with Isaac Gonzalez the way it plays out. But I do have a pro-con with that kind of subplot going on because it kind of falls into my cons later with, but he was still a great presence. And he's always awesome to see on screen. And then the way that the action sequences are shot, it's what you expect with Guy Ritchie, the way that he stylizes it, and that very kind of, quick pace type of and witty dialogue that he likes to throw in, especially when characters are interacting with each other. And the way that the shootouts take place and the way that they're infiltrating a lot of the stuff happening, I really appreciate that they took their time going into more of the stealth operations in this, because there are sequences where you have them really infiltrating the Nazis, and with them having to, go under, with having to you can definitely see a lot of the fun that the actors had too, especially when every time you see Henry Cavill shooting Nazis with his machine gun, he's just always cracking up with a smile on his face, and it's like it triggers him in that trigger happy, so to speak. But, it was all played pretty good, and it gets pretty brutal at times too in some places. And there's also some really great blend of practical effects too with some of the explosions that they do, which I'm glad we get to see that more often because, It really baffles me how a lot of big movies these days, they always struggle with using explosions and using movies that rely a lot on CGI for explosions and fire and stuff. I miss the days when you got to use practical effects to to doing stuff like that. And this one actually really gets to use that to its advantage. So that was great. And then one of the other biggest things I got to really appreciate this is the score in this. Now, I haven't heard a lot of Ennio Morricone's original work from the classic spaghetti westerns, but the composer they got for this movie definitely goes for that kind of vibe that Ennio Morricone had used in his original films, and may he rest in peace. It makes you really wish that he was still to this day, still alive to this day, because the guy definitely did have some great stuff that I've heard, including, I haven't seen the movies but I've heard some of the soundtracks, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Once Time in the West, and all that. And so, one of these days, if I ever get a chance to watch some of those spaghetti westerns and sit down and watch them, that'll definitely come into gear when I hear that music kicking in. And it plays really throughout the film, where you're hearing all the whistling and guitar riffs and stuff. It gets you in the kind of mood, that really kind of epic mood, that really epic mood that also falls in line with Glorious Bastards as well in that regard. If you want a more upbeat type of movie compared to that one, because I love Glorious Bastards, but that one is a lot more of a dialogue-driven type of film that does its own story, which it's more well written. I'll give it that. But this one is the more upbeat type of film that does lack some things compared to Glorious Bastards, but it's still good in its own right. That's the best I can describe this movie. It's just a lot of fun, seeing these guys doing what they do best, especially the chemistry they have, the camaraderie that they do, and a lot of their skills that they use throughout the film. It works to their advantage, and how great the cast all works in their own regard. Especially Alan Ritchie. I'm glad to see that he's doing stuff like this, where in this one he's really playing the kind of guy that's always constantly using the crossbow and the bow and arrow and stuff. It's basically like a World War II version of Hawkeye, if that makes sense. Him always constantly getting his targets and stuff, and only relying on up close hand-to-hand combat when necessary. But the guy is just, it makes you really want to see him more into other action roles. And hey, if he ever gets the job if he ever plays Batman or some other big character like that in the future, I would love to see him play something like that, because I think he would be a really good fit. But if I had to get into some of my cons, we'll have to say that a little bit of the pacing can drag a little bit in the middle half, because it does seem like the movie spins a little bit where characters are just kind of planning things out. And while that is definitely building something really cool up toward the climax, it does take a while to get there, because you do kind of have scenes where they're not really doing much of the action on. And even though you do get some fun camaraderie that happens here and there with some of the characters, it does feel like it takes a kind of a stop for a little bit and has kind of a rest. And that also falls into Isa Gonzalez's character, where even though I enjoy her performance, I think that she only really shines when she's on screen with Til Schweiger, because the scenes where they're basically playing Ryan games and stuff really comes into a great cool payoff that happens toward the end. It comes into play with something big that happens at the end of it, but it does feel like, for the most part, before we get to that, the movie does seem like it's not as really engaging as far as her character compared to the rest of the stuff that's involved with Henry Cavill and his crew. Because even though there's some good snippy dialogue that Guy Ritchie is known for writing in a lot of those scenes, especially with her, it just seems like the movie seems like she would be more if she was a character that was actually in Inglourious Basterds with her storyline going on. Because it seems like it goes in a more slower pace when it has the scenes of her, as she definitely seems like she's doing more of the espionage type of stuff, where she really is more like the character you saw from Inglourious Basterds with Diane Kruger's character in that, if that makes sense. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it goes along with the story, and I'm sure that in real life that was a major contributing factor with the real woman that she plays and everything, but it seems like the movie just lacks focus when it gets to the stuff with her. And on top of that, there's more stuff they could have really done with on a writing standpoint with Til Schweiger, but because his character does lack a lot of depth, because he is your typical villain and stuff. So there's more they could have really added on with his character and everything. But other than that, though, I still had a really good time with this, and it's certainly one of Guy Ritchie's good film. It's one of his films that I can definitely see recommended on something on the level of like a better version of Operation Fortune. But even with Operation Fortune that came out last year, I still had some fun with that one. It just still felt like it had some things that really became more standard and stuff. And similar to this one, it kind of has some of the same problems like that movie had. But with that being said, I still had a lot of fun with it. And with that, I'm going to give the movie a high compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. And so, for those of you who have also seen the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and also read the book that it's also based on, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.